Hey, how you doing? I'm just about to watch episode 10 of season 3. It's called Home. First I'm going to recap last episode and I'm going to discuss the show a little bit. Then I'm going to watch episode 10 and you'll see my review. Obviously I'm going to edit out me actually watching the episode because that'll be kind of boring to watch. Last episode was The Suicide King. It was action-packed and I think there was a lot of character development in it, and there was definitely a massive change to the group dynamic. In my last Walking Dead video I talked about loyalty of different characters, which was really what Suicide King was about. Daryl and Merle are able to escape with Rick and Maggie, and they then meet up with Glenn and Michonne. Rick, Maggie, Glenn and Daryl have a private conversation between them whether they should allow Merle or Michonne to come back to the prison with them. Merle has been a bit of an asshole so far, so obviously Rick, Maggie and Glenn don't want him to come back. So this unfortunately led to Daryl choosing to stay with Merle, and they both leave together. The return of Merle has been coming for a long while now, and the big question was, how will Daryl react? Like, will he be so attached to Rick, Glenn and the others, particularly Carol, that he would choose them over his own brother? And unfortunately it turns out that he wouldn't. Though you could definitely see that he did want to stay with Rick, and it's just that he has strong principles that he wouldn't turn his back on his own brother. Daryl even left without saying goodbye to Carol because it would hurt him too much. It's not just Daryl that has this dilemma, it's also Andrea. Last episode Andrea found out that her old friends are still alive, but because of her relationship with the governor, it looks like she's going to be staying in Woodbury. So basically Rick's in a lot of trouble. He's got 9 people in his group, but that includes 2 teenagers, a baby, and a one-legged old man. Axel is also just a hindrance. Like, he's really creepy and just generally disturbed. Like, they found him in a prison because he used to be an inmate. I know he says that, like, it used to be drug use or something like that. That's the only reason he's in there. But if he was a serial murderer or a rapist, he wouldn't really admit to that. Ridiculous. So Rick needs help, and Herschel suggested that they should recruit Tyrese and his group, who were really eager to help them. Rick and Tyrese talked, but Rick started going all schizophrenic, shouting and waving his gun at an imaginary lorry. This caused Tyrese, Sasha, Alan and Ben to run away. Laurie's death has definitely screwed up Rick's head. It looked like he was getting better until he saw Shane the episode before last, and now he's seen Laurie. I said in my last video, when Rick had his breakdown, killing all the zombies and talking to imaginary people over the phone, Daryl was there to kind of take the lead and look after everyone, but now he's gone, so we need Rick to find his sanity or they're all screwed. The governor is sort of going through the same thing as Rick. Michonne killed his zombie daughter in episode 8, the mid-season finale, and he's not dealing with it very well. But I think Andrea is actually going to be a positive influence on him, and maybe even help him get over it. Though if the governor does decide to get revenge on Rick's group, will Andrea still side with him? Probably not. So I think that covers most of the Suicide King's content. I'm not sure if this is going to be a big plot point, but Glenn and Maggie are having relationship problems because of what Merle and the governor did to them. I genuinely have no idea what is going to happen next, and I wanted to talk about how unpredictable this show is, mainly because it differs quite a lot from the graphic novels. I personally haven't actually read any of them yet because I don't want to spoil the television show for myself, but I know a few people that do read them, and they've kind of told me where the graphic novels and the show differ. I've also done some of my own research between the two, and I thought it'd be fun to go over some of the similarities and differences between the two. So difference number 1, Daryl and Merle are not in the novels. Like, I really like Merle, mainly because I'm a really big fan of Michael Rooker, but I freaking love Daryl, so it's weird to imagine either of them not being in The Walking Dead, and I definitely don't think it would have been as good a show if neither of them were in it. Difference number 2, Shane dies a lot earlier apparently in the graphic novels, and it's actually Carl that kills him. I actually think Shane's character was the best part of season 2, so if he was killed off in season 1, I think the show definitely would have suffered. So it was a good choice to keep Shane in a bit longer by the writers, I think. Difference number 3. Tyrese's introduction on the show is a lot later than in the novels. I believe that Tyrese was actually supposed to be one of the original members in season 1. I think that's also why a lot of people got him confused with T-Dog, you know, the TNT dog, because he is one of the members, but was made up purely for the show, T-Dog, because he's not Tyrese. Apparently Tyrese was one of the best characters in the graphic novel, so it is a bit of a shame they didn't add him in earlier. Difference number 4. Sophia didn't die in the novels, or if she does later on, it's definitely not like the barn scene in the show. Yeah, so apparently they kept Sophia on a little bit longer in the novels, and it's kind of set up that she's the love interest with Carl. I don't really have an opinion on this. I think it maybe was quite a good choice to kill her off, because it was definitely a surprise for the people that follow the graphic novels. Also, the barn scene I think was probably the best scene of season 2. It was really effective and dramatic. So yeah, I think they made the right choice of that. Difference number 5. Herschel kicks Rick's group off the farm in the novels instead of the zombies chasing them off at the end of season 2 in the TV show. This means that the group dynamic is a lot different between the novels and the TV show, and also in the novels Glenn stays on the farm because of his relationship with Maggie. So while the others leave, Glenn and Maggie actually stay on the farm, so it kind of separates them. Obviously in the TV show they all stick together. Difference number 6. Dale is killed off later in the novels, and he also has a sexual relationship with Andrea. Yeah, it's a bit too weird for the show, I think. I didn't mind Dale. He was an alright character. He was kind of the moral centre of the group. I do realise that. But I found his relationship with Andrea, it was kind of like a father-daughter thing, but I also found it a bit annoying. So one of them had to go, and unfortunately it was Dale who went instead of Andrea. So there are actually countless differences between the two of them, especially because, for example, Shane, who was killed off a lot earlier in the novels, because he was kept on a bit longer in season 2 of the TV show, there's a sort of butterfly effect with all the decisions that he makes and the impact he has on the show. It just wasn't there in the graphic novels. Also Tyrese's character, he's pushed back a lot into season 3 when he would have been in season 1. So all the decisions and the impacts he's had in the graphic novels just aren't in the TV show. So I'm probably going to post another video maybe of some more of these differences, maybe with spoilers of what's possibly going to happen on the TV show as well. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I spoiled quite a lot for myself whilst researching, but I'm definitely going to get these graphic novels and read them. Okay, so before I accidentally spoil something now, I'm just going to watch episode 10 and you'll see my reaction and review in a sec. So I just watched episode 10, I did quite enjoy it. I'm just going to go over what happened in it, then I'll talk about what I liked and I didn't like and what I think is going to happen. So we start off with Rick spiraling down into madness. He's running around the prison chasing after Laurie in the white dress. A few people spot him, like Michonne, thinking he's gone completely nuts. We then see a conversation between Andrea and the governor. The governor seems to have calmed down and he says he doesn't really want to retaliate to Rick and he just wants to leave them in the prison to do their own thing. He says he also wants to step down as leader and thinks that Andrea is a very valuable member to this group and he's very grateful that she's around. Glenn has naturally assumed the role of the new leader. He's now the alpha male, now that it's only him, Herschel, and Carl, really, who could be leader. He wants to attack the governor before the governor has a chance to attack them at the prison. He seems pretty intent on doing this, but Herschel is actually able to calm him down, and they should just wait, see how things play out. We see that the governor doesn't fully trust Andrea because he sort of thinks that she could be a spy working for Rick, because that's what Merle turned out to be, or what he believed Merle was doing. So yeah, he doesn't really 100% trust Andrea. It is a bit of a coincidence that her old friends have suddenly turned up after she was taken into the camp. So he gets Milton to keep an eye on her for the time being. So Glenn and Maggie at the moment, things are not looking good for them. They're really not getting along. I think this is obviously because Maggie's really emotionally traumatized by what happened to them. If you remember in the interrogation scene 2 episodes ago, I think, yeah, the governor made Maggie strip off in front of him, and even though he didn't actually physically touch her, it was very emotionally traumatizing for her, as I said. So she's really angry, she's got all this anger built up inside her, and she just takes out on Glenn, because that's all she can really do. This gets Glenn really riled up and actually leads him to irrationally go and confront the governor. So he just drives off, leaves everyone, even though Herschel's trying to convince him to stay. And I feel really sorry for Herschel at the moment. He's trying to hold the group together, and he's desperate for someone to kind of lead them. So Rick's off looking for Laurie, Glenn's driven off looking for the governor. You know, nothing's going well at the moment. Daryl and Merle are walking around the woods. They hear a baby crying, so they go and investigate it. Well, Daryl goes to investigate it while Merle reluctantly follows. They then encounter a group of people on a bridge kind of fighting off a bunch of walkers. This was a really good fight scene, and probably my favourite part of this episode, because we get to see Daryl jumping around with his crossbow. Merle's also, he's hanging back a bit. He doesn't really care about these people, it's just the way Merle is. But he then decides he'll join in a little bit, kill some of the walkers. The next scene was really interesting, because in return for their help, Merle wants to take some of their food. The people are obviously too petrified to do anything about it, but Daryl actually steps in and stops Merle. So after this confrontation between Daryl and Merle, that leads on to an argument in which Daryl wants to go back to the prison and Merle wants to keep things the way they are, just the two of them. I do really like Merle. I know he's done some horrible things in the show, but I do think he has redeeming qualities. The biggest one is definitely his relationship with Daryl. He's got some genuine affection for him, and you can definitely see that at some points when they're alone together. The second one is, I think deep down, Merle would like to be accepted by Rick and the others. You know, he's got a really volatile personality and defense mechanisms. He hasn't really had anyone in his whole life that's been there for him apart from Daryl, and that's the only person he has a connection with. So I think if Rick and the others did accept him into the group, he would learn that he can trust them and he would be a great asset. The only problem is, has he gone too far with Glenn? Obviously he tortured him, and Maggie as well, so the show can really go two ways. It can either kind of alienate Merle and maybe kill him off or something like that, or it could let Merle join the group, and I really do hope it's the latter. Poor Rick, I feel sorry for him at the moment. He isn't actually in this episode very much. He's kind of off doing his own thing. Herschel kind of hobbles down to the fence at one point and he has a chat with Rick, and he really asks Rick to come back because they don't really have anyone that can fill his role. Obviously Glenn did an abysmal job trying. So Rick does console in Herschel. He explains to him that he's seeing Laurie and Shane repeatedly, and it's going to take a while for Rick to get back to normal, if he ever does. Carol and Axel are talking about Rick, and they start flirting, which was uncomfortable to watch. But suddenly Axel is shot in the head, and it's by the governor. He went against his word. He told Andrea that he wasn't going to get revenge on them, but he has done just that. A massive shootout then ensues, and zombies get into the prison because one of the governor's men, he drives in, leaving a massive hole behind. There's also zombies in the back of the van that he releases. Yeah, so it's quite clever. Glenn returns in his car just in time to kind of pick up Herschel and Maggie and get them deeper into the prison where they're safe. Rick, who's actually still outside the prison, is actually pinned down by multiple zombies. Luckily at this point Merle and Daryl arrive and they're able to save Rick. The episode ends with Carol, Glenn, Maggie, Beth, Carl, Herschel, Judith and Michonne falling back into the prison, whilst Rick, Daryl and Merle are stuck outside. So I really like this episode, I think mainly because of the character development between Merle and Daryl. It's the first time we've seen them alone together in the whole show, which is crazy because they're brothers. So I think the big question in this episode is, do we like Merle? Do we want him to be part of the group, or do we want him to get lost? And it to go back to how things were before he came back into the show. As you know, personally, I want him to join the group, but it's definitely going to create a lot of controversy and divide the group. I know for a fact that Glenn won't be happy of him being around. He saved Rick's life, so is Rick going to feel obliged to kind of repay him by letting him in? Because it's not really fair for Merle to risk his life to save Rick, then Rick to turn around and, tell him to leave. So I'm interested to see how that pans out. The next episode airs on the 24th, and it's called I Ain't a Judas. I'm assuming this is referring to Andrea and how the governor doesn't trust her anymore. My prediction for this episode is the governor's probably going to accuse Andrea of being a spy. This will drive her away, and she might go and join Rick at the prison. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you catch it, and thanks for watching.